Alright everyone, in this video I will show you very important tips to significantly improve your render times on Blender from maybe a week to just a couple of hours. So, if you have a Blender file that contains like an animation of just a couple of seconds, but at the same time you cannot render it because your computer takes a week to do so, then you've come to the right place, because in this video I'll show you how to reduce the render time of such a short animation from a week to just a couple of hours. Okay, so say you have this scene. Okay, I mean, we've made this scene in our previous tutorial. Whatever file you have, this scene or anything else. So to begin in this new way of rendering, you have to follow these steps that I'm going to tell you about. So the first thing is, if you have any kind of like simulation or physics or rigid body world or something, make sure to go ahead and bake that. I'm going to show you an example first. So let me go ahead and here to show you this example. So over here I have a physics. I mean, it's a scene in which, let me show you, the ball is going to fall here and it's going to basically distort these cubes. Alright, so I have this physics scene. So step one is to go ahead and bake all dynamics. If you have such a simulation or physics or something, make sure to go ahead and bake that. And then if you don't have any such thing, you can skip step one and go right to step two. Now here is step two. In step two, you're going to click on File, External Data, and then you're going to click on Pack Resources. This is going to pack all your texture files and stuff onto this Blender file. Then what you're going to do is you're going to click here on File and go to External Data, and then click on Unpack Resources and select the second option, which is Write Files to Current Directory, Overwrite Existing Files. What this will do is that if you go to your Blender file location, you'll see that a new folder has been created, and that's called textures. Okay, this folder over here, it contains pretty much all the textures that you used in your Blender file. Okay, now and you're gonna find this YouTube 3.blend one, and then you're gonna find also your blend file. Alright, after doing this, all you have to do is press Ctrl S to save, and then click just close your Blender file. We don't need it anymore. Of course, before doing these steps, make sure that you've already set your render settings to what you want. So before packing the files and before baking anything, make sure that your render settings are already prepared and exactly the way you want them to be. After finishing those two steps, all you want to do is go to your Google Drive. You can pick as many accounts as you want, and I'm going to show you how you can use multiple accounts in this process, but I'm going to start with just one account, and then we're going to proceed to more accounts. So on your Google Drive, create a new folder, and I'm going to name this folder Colab Renders. Okay, technically you could name it whatever you want, but there's a certain Python file we're going to be using on a website called Google Colab. And in this Python file there are certain directories in the code, and if you don't use these names in the folders, you're gonna have to change many things in the code, and that's gonna be annoying. So I want to make it as simple as possible, so I advise you to just name it exactly as I do, Colab Renders. I'm gonna click on Create, and then I'm gonna open this folder, and then I'm gonna create a new folder, and I'm gonna name this Renders. Please use the exact same names I'm using. This will save you a lot of time. You're not going to have to change much of the code. Pretty much we're going to change very tiny things in the code. Everything else is going to be the same. So Renders, and then click on Create, and in this case I'm going to use two accounts. You can use many accounts if you want to, and the more accounts you use, the faster the render is going to be. And I'm going to explain to you exactly what we're going to be doing, because you may be wondering, what the hell am I talking about? I'm going to tell you. So let's go ahead and do that. New folder, Colab Renders, click on Create, and then open this folder and create a new folder inside of it and call it Renders. Okay, and now I'm gonna go to this first account, and then I'll locate those three files I'm talking about, this Blender file, the blend.1 file, or sorry, the .blend1 file, and the textures folder, and then I'm gonna upload them into this Google Drive. I'll be right back when the upload is complete. Alright guys, so the upload is complete. Make sure that you upload this inside the Colab renders folder, but outside the renders folder, okay? Textures, then your file.blend1 and your file.blend. Those three should be uploaded here outside outside the renders folder, but inside the Colab renders folder. I'm gonna do the same on the other Google Drive account, and by the end of this video you'll understand that you can use many accounts and not just two, but I'm just showing you two accounts just to give you the concept. We're going to do the same thing here. Select those three and click and drag to upload them, and I'll be right back when the upload is complete. Alright guys, so this upload is also complete. Let's go to our Google Colab, and this is the topic of this video. This is the main topic of this video. So it's called colab.research.google.com. Use this to open it and then log in with your account, and then click on upload. If you don't have this pop-up menu, you can just bring it from here, click on file and click on upload notebook, after of course logging in first. And then after doing this, you can click on upload, and then we're going to open this Python file that I was talking about, the link of which will be in the description. So I'm going to open this up. Alright, so what we're seeing right there is a text-based virtual machine. So the whole idea of this speeding up the render time thing that we're doing is to render our animation on a virtual machine with a virtual online GPU. Since my computer, for example, doesn't have a Blender compatible GPU, my renders on my PC use the CPU, and this takes a lot of time. The render is so slow and takes a lot of time. So the scene that we've made together, you'll find it on my channel, this Rubik's Cube animation scene. On my PC, it's going to take a week to render, okay? So because my PC is using a CPU to render, and this is very bad for Blender rendering, okay? But here, if you click on edit and go to notebook settings, as you can see, this device is using a T4 GPU, okay, and we're going to be using this GPU to render our file. So the file is going to be rendered on a virtual machine, and then the render result will be uploaded to our Google Drive, and from there we can download it to our PC. And I'm going to show you how you can do that. Make sure that you're on a T4 GPU session and click on save, and let's begin. So the first step is to download Blender on the virtual machine. We want to make sure that the Blender we download is the exact version of the Blender we are using. And to be more specific, it has to be the exact same version of the Blender we used in our Blender file that we want to render. Okay? So if I uploaded my Blender now, if I updated my Blender now to say 4.2.1, we're gonna still use the 4.2.0 version because this is the one I used in the file that I want to render right now. Okay, so make sure to check this. Make sure to remember when you were making your scene what Blender version you were using, and then we have to remember this version. In my case, I was using the same version that's on the screen right there. It's 4.2.0. It's the version I'm using now in Blender and the version I used in my scene as well, so I'm good. I'm gonna close this, okay, and then I'm gonna open here, and all you have to do is since I'm using Blender 4.2, I'm gonna make sure this is 4.2, and over here I'm gonna specifically write the exact version 4.2.0, so make sure to do that. Do not change anything else, just change these numbers. If you're using Blender 3.9, for example, change this to 3.9, and then over here specify the exact version, maybe 3.9.1 for example. You know what I'm saying. So that's the whole point. And after doing this, all you have to do is click on download, and this will download Blender onto this virtual machine. Alright, so it has finished. Next step is to click on this cell and run it. It's going to mount your Google Drive into this virtual machine. It's going to ask you for permission to grant access to this virtual machine to your Google Drive files. You're gonna have to grant this permission, so let me go ahead and do that. Alright, so now this virtual machine will be able to read your Google Drive files. Okay, let's click on continue and wait for a while until the Google Drive is mounted onto the device. Now it's been mounted. Let's click on this twice. Click here, and now we refreshed this Explorer area, and now we have this Drive folder. It contains everything on our Google Drive. Click on My Drive, and you can see there's everything in our Google Drive. Alright, we're going to skip those two cells, and we're going to go to this next cell, and we're going to click on Install Blender. Alright, let's wait for Blender to be installed. Again, by the way, make sure that your Blender version here is correct. Again, in my case it's 4.2.0, so I'm not changing that, but if your Blender version say is 4.2.1, make sure to come over here and change this to 0.1 instead of 0.0, okay? And then click on Run. And wait for this Blender to be installed. Again, we're installing it on the virtual machine. And notice that we're installing the Linux version because this virtual machine is a Linux machine and not a Windows machine. Okay, so before installing Blender, again, I'm repeating, make sure that your version is correct. And here, in this file name, we're not going to change anything except this .blend file. We're going to go to our Google Drive. Remember the file we just uploaded? It's, in my case, it's called YouTube 3. In your case, it's whatever file you were working with. It's pretty much the file that you want to render on Google Colab. It's the file that your computer is suffering a lot to render. It's the file that your computer takes 1 week to render. Yeah, this file is the file you want to take a look at and copy its name if you want to, or just remember its name. In my case, it's YouTube3.blend. So I'm going to go back to Google Colab, and then I'm going to change the name to YouTube 3, and this is it, YouTube 3. If you want to, you can also click here, My Drive, and go to Colab Renders folder. You're going to find it here, and over here you're going to find the file that you just uploaded, so you can do that if you want to. If you're scared of typing something wrong, you can just click here and click on Rename File, and just copy this file. Press Ctrl-C to copy, and just go over here and just press Ctrl-V to paste to make sure that you've not made any kind of typo. Alright, now let's go ahead and run this cell. It's going to assign this path into this file name so that we don't have to write this path again. We're going to just refer to this variable. Okay. Now over here, make sure that the Blender version here is correct. If it's not correct, make sure to correct it. And then file name here refers to this destination folder here. This path that we just copied. And then no audio, since we don't have audio, we're going to just say no audio. And then here, this E refers to the engine. In my case, it's Cycles engine. And here, all you have to do is change this last name to the name of your rendered frames. What is the name you want your image file for each of these rendered frames to be? So, for example, if you're making a bowl animation, you can name this bowl animation. So this means that when the frames are rendered, they're going to be in this way. I'm going to show you what I mean. Okay. So, for example, let's go to this project, for example, or this project, rendered frames. It's going to be something like this, cube animation, and then a number beside it denoting the frame number. Yeah, this name before the frame number is the name you want to write over here after the renders word. Make sure that you have a / and then type the name that you want your frames to be. Okay, so I'm going to here type test render, and then over here you set your start frame. Over here, set your start frame and your end frame. S here refers to the start frame, and E refers to the end frame. Here I'm going to leave them as 1 and 100. I'm going to render from frame 1 to frame 100. And here is the file format. As I mentioned in my previous videos, it's better to render as an image format. This will result in an image sequence render. It's not going to be a single video file, it's going to be an image sequence that we can later on combine to a single video file in the Blender video editor. Okay, this is nice because if something happens in your render, you can just start from the frame in which the render was corrupted. You don't have to start all over again. Over here, make sure that the extension file is the same extension file you used in your Blender file render settings. Remember, you can go back to your Blender file and go to the output menu and check what extension you've set up and make sure it's the same. And this is it. These are all the things we need to change in this notebook before we start rendering. So let's go ahead and begin. Click on the render button and let's begin. Now, if you look here, it says FRA:1. This means frame 1. So right now it's rendering frame 1. This is the frame that's being rendered at the moment, and let's wait until it's rendered. The rendered frames are going to be in this renders folder. They're going to appear, so we're going to refresh this to see our renders. Alright, it's 65 samples. I'm going to go to the next Colab account and then I'm going to do the same thing to prepare. So I'm going to prepare the next Colab account. Let me do that quickly in front of you guys. I'm going to open this one. Alright, so alright, this is still frame 1. Over here my version is correct. I'm going to just run the cell. It's going to bring you this human verification. This could be very problematic. You know why? Because they bring you this human verification to make sure that you're not idle and that you're interactively using this feature. Okay, so there's actually a way to fix this problem, because it's going to be very annoying if you're going to have to keep clicking around, or else this is going to close. Okay, I'm going to fix this problem for you guys. Let's run the second one. Connect to Google Drive quickly. By the way, sometimes you're going to see here it says frame 2 or frame whatever, and in reality it has already rendered more than what it's saying. This doesn't happen a lot, but sometimes it happens. Okay, let's check our Google Drive, and as you can see, the first frame has been rendered already. It's just around a minute and we've rendered our first frame successfully. You see how fast this is? My PC normally takes an hour to render this frame, so imagine from an hour to just a minute to render the frame. Okay, let's prepare this next account quickly. I'm going to install Blender over here, and here I'm going to set this to YouTube 3. And here I'm going to name this thing. Test render. Make sure to use the same name you used in the first one. This is very nice. If you don't use this, you may run into problems later on when you're combining the image sequence. It could be a bit annoying, so it's much better to just write the same name that you used. Now here's the trick. Over here, now the reason we're using multiple accounts is to speed up the render even further. Okay, so if this thing is taking 1 frame per minute, we want it to take 2 frames per minute. If the speed is 1 frame per minute, we want to increase this speed to make it, say, 2 frames per minute, 3 frames per minute, depending on the number of accounts you're using. Over here, we are rendering from frame 1 to frame 100. In the next account, I'm going to render from frame 101 to frame 200. You see what I'm doing here? I'm saving a lot of time. By doing this, I'm actually doubling the speed, and you can triple and quadruple the speed as well if you keep opening accounts and continuing. So if I open a third account and then render from frame 201 to 300, of course after doing this Google Drive thing first, then I'm tripling the speed. You can keep doing this, tripling, quadrupling, and so on, and then you're going to have a very high speed of render, because each account is responsible for only a small number of frames and they're just rendering together. It's as if you're increasing the number of cores in this device. So right now it's running at a single core T4 GPU. By running multiple accounts, it's as if you're using many cores of this GPU. So if I open 4 accounts, it's as if I'm using a quad core T4 GPU. You know what I mean? This is what I'm talking about, guys. So we use multiple accounts to significantly speed up our rendering speed. Okay, so as you can see here, it's already in frame 4, and if you let's refresh here, and it has already rendered 3 frames, and as you can see, 2214, 2215, 2216, it's rendering at 1 frame per minute, and once this thing starts, it's gonna the net speed is gonna be 2 frames per minute. Okay, let's click on here, and this will start rendering. And yeah, you can basically do this with as many accounts as you want to do, and it's gonna get faster and faster. You can I once rendered a scene with 10 accounts. It was like a deca core GPU. All right. Now what I'm gonna tell you now is the limitations of Google Colab, okay? Because nothing comes without limitations, right? The first thing is, if you click here and go to view resources, you're gonna see that your runtime doesn't last forever. You have only, as you can see here, it says 3 hours and 10 minutes. After this time, it's going to immediately be terminated. You know what I'm talking about? So your account is limited per day. So each day you have only a limited amount of runtime. And also, if you keep idle like this, if you don't do anything and just leave your computer and go and eat lunch or something, and come back after a while, this Colab is gonna send you a human verification thing to make sure that you're active and using Colab. And if you don't verify, it's gonna terminate your session. And this could be very problematic and can make this pretty much unpractical. So but actually I have a fix for this problem. There's actually a way to fix this problem and trick Google Colab into thinking that you're still active and using this service. Okay, what you want to do is, if you have an F unlock on your keyboard, make sure to toggle it in such a way so that your F12 opens your web developer tools. So essentially we want to open the web developer tools, and then there is a txt file that I'm going to link in the description. It contains this text. You want to copy this text and you want to paste it into your web developer tools and hit enter. What this will do is that every minute it's going to click on the screen automatically without you don't have to do anything. It's going to click automatically for you, and it's going to make Google Colab think that you're active on the session. This will ensure that the session is not going to close before this runtime actually runs out. Okay, let's do the same thing here. As you can see, it's telling me, are you still there? This is problematic, so to stop this from happening again, I'm going to press F12 and I'm going to paste this code here and hit enter, and this message should not come again. But this will only work if you've already executed the final cell, this render cell. If this cell is already in progress, then this code is going to work. If you run this code earlier, it's not going to work, and these human verification messages are going to still come up to you. So it only works after this cell is in progress. Okay, and to be honest, that's the main thing. That's what we want. I don't care about the previous cells. They're very tiny, and we're already by that time we were already still active on Google Colab. Starting from here, that's when we actually become idle, and that's when we actually need this code to help us. As you can see, it says clicking. It means it's actually clicking on the screen to trick Google Colab. So as you can see on this other account, if you go to renders, it's starting to render as well. So we're rendering our frames. So here it's going to render from 1 to 100, and here from 101 to 200, and then you can continue doing the same thing with multiple accounts to significantly speed up, to double, triple, quadruple, and so on the speed of the renders. As you can see, we no longer have to suffer with our slow render speeds on our weak computers. We can use free online GPUs to speed up our renders. Make sure that after you run the render cell, the final cell of this notebook, make sure that after you run it, you open your web developer tools and paste this code into the console. Now, in some cases, your web developer tools console will refuse to run the code because it's kind of scared that you're pasting some unknown code. Basically, it's trying to protect you. So it tells you if you want to run this code, type in allow pasting, so go ahead and do that. And then after typing allow pasting, you can then paste the code again and hit enter, and then it's gonna work. Okay, now this code doesn't do anything. All it does is that it keeps clicking for you so that this thing doesn't think that you're inactive. Alright, so I think this is about it. This concludes this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As you can see, the frames are being rendered very fast. And yeah, this is brilliant. Let's go here and open this one. As you can see, it's being rendered the way we want it to be. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, guys, give it a thumbs up, share it, subscribe, and leave a comment to leave any suggestion you want. And see you guys in the next time. And have an excellent rest of your day. Goodbye.